Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy July 4th. We're off today, and yay, we're off tomorrow too. So I've actually got a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then I get off early on Monday because I have to go get a follow-up and get released from workers' compensation on Monday, and then I gotta go to the VA on Wednesday. So yeah, I have got a good 3 days to work on this stuff. However, my mother wants to come and clean tomorrow. So sometime today, I'm going to interrupt my progress and get to the store and get money for her. And I got to text her back. But this one, yeah, day in the life of me. Anyway, yeah, I did a take while I was driving the other day because I got this thought in my head and I haven't been able to shake it, and we'll talk about that afterward, maybe, if I remember, because I'm ADD, and, you know, shiny things distract me. Anywho, so, this thing, I finally checked my mail. I don't know if I mentioned that in one of my videos. I let it back up for like 3 months, and then I go through it. Anyway, opened up all of these VA things that I got, and I'm doing a comparison of roughly 6-month period. So, the doctor that I hated and I fired, this is the blood work for her. All right. Now, all she did was a TSH. She did not do anything other than a TSH for thyroid analysis. And I am pretty sure that if I had given this to Dr. Barry at that time, he would have probably gone and done his full spectrum panel to figure out what the fuck, right? So my TSH at that time, back in November 2024, was a 4.63. Had that bugger been 0.3 something, 0.32 higher, it would have been high, okay? Which makes 0 sense. And here's why. A lot of people would look at it like, okay, but you're getting fat. How's your TSH high? Yeah, exactly. That's the fucking problem. Okay, so just looking at that one looked like it was borderline on the high side of normal. Probably she should have said, yeah, let's go get some other blood work and see what's going on. Right? That, or have done enough to be able to determine that that 4.63 was something's going on and we're going to figure it out. Right? She didn't give a fuck. She's collecting a paycheck. Right? Well, then we move down into the other stuff. She does a glucose. Glucose is, 86. That's good. Let me look quick because I don't think she did an A1C. This is all she did. White blood cell count. Yeah, was high at that time. It was a 10.1, but just under going over. And I got sick like a couple weeks later. Did I get sick after? No, that was in May. But yeah, my white blood cell count was a little high. So, yeah, what's going on? TSH is high, is borderline high, and my white blood cell count is borderline high. And then I'm looking at a lot of this other stuff. She did not do an A1C. Oh, she did do an A1C. It was a 5.2. Not happy with that. I've always been about a 4.5, right? So I'm looking at all of these different values, kind of putting in my own assessment together, because this woman didn't do any corresponding thyroid stuff, right? So I'm kind of like trying to do an equation in my head. But well, let's pop down to the lipid. Cholesterol, the total, there's an add-on to this because I started taking a supplement and it works, was 331. And then my HDLs were 97, which I don't care if they're high. They can have a threshold all they want. And my triglycerides were 103, which were a little higher than what I wanted. I want my triglycerides lower than my HDL. And I don't care what my HDLs are at all. And the total direct was 228. The LDL in general is 228. They've got it to 0 to 99. Yeah, you don't... threshold 99... 0 to 99? Who the fuck makes up this stuff? If you have 0 cholesterol in your body cannot heal. Period. It means your liver is shut off. You're in liver failure. You might want to fix that. Moving on from that rant. Yeah, who the fuck... Anyway. So, just giving you a perspective, my cholesterol was 331, the total number. And this time, the doc, she goes through and does everything. So this was mid-November. This is almost 6 months later. Just 6 months, right? Now, about a week before this blood work, that is when I decided I wasn't going to drink anymore. I just stopped drinking every day after work. Now, every now and then I'll have 1 or 2 if I had a rough day. And that's just to take the edge off so I can fucking decompress from my crazy day. But as far as like pounding 8 like I used to do, yeah, that doesn't happen. I can't even handle that. Anyway, so she does my TSH this time after I haven't been drinking like, you know, psychotic lush. And I have decided that, you know, the keto, it worked for a year because I have the blood work to show that it is magnificent. When you're ill and you go on it, I've got the blood work of before and I got the blood work of after having been doing the keto for about, I don't know, 6 to 8 months. Oh yeah. The difference in the blood work is like phenomenal. So anyway, my TSH was 175 in May. She did the free thyroxine. It was 1.2. Now that is above the midline. It's closer to the high end. So I'm wondering, okay, did she catch that? So my TSH is middle of the road, a little bit on the low side. The free thyroxine is a little bit on the high side of normal. Low side of normal, high side of normal. All right, then we have, she did my urinalysis, comes up with trace ketone. Okay. I haven't delved into that yet, but she does all the regular, you know, CBC, the normal shit. And then we flip it over. This is the first sheet. She does a replica because she was waiting on some of the thyroid tests to come back, which those are interesting. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then we get down to the cholesterol. Now, here's the fun part. The cholesterol, 299. Now, it's still high, but it's 30 points lower than it was 6 months ago. Okay? My HDL is 20 points lower than it was 6 months ago. And my triglycerides, after having started adding back in, like, I do that Italian pasta, the stuff that comes from Italy. I don't eat this American wheat shit at all. That was a 76. So it went from 100 something to 76. And how did I do that? My goodness. And then it's 233 on the LDL direct. And my cholesterol HDL ratio is 3.9. which is within range, which is good. So, there's that sheet. Well, then we're going to get into the thyroid stuff. Okay, total T3 was 91. It's the low side of normal. You know, it goes from 71 to 180. So, if we're looking at it in, you know, perspective of scale, it's on the low side of normal. Antithyroid AB. So, basically, it's kind of like the TPO. The antithyroid globulin is a 1.0, which is very low on the high side, right? So it's barely making the normal. It's just one tick over normal range. Who makes up these ratios? I don't know. But anyway, it's from 0 to 0.9. I made it to 1 point, whatever. Anyway. And then my antithyroid peroxidase is the low side of normal. So it's 12. So it goes from 0 to 34. Okay? So there's that. Here's a third sheet because none of this lab work was coming in. You know. So she's keeping up with it. She's good. I like this lady. Because she did what I asked. I was like, check my thyroid. Now, if we're wrong, we're wrong. If we're right, we're right. But, you know, there's nothing wrong with checking it. Right? Why wouldn't that other one check it? That's the bitch that I had. This is the reason why I fired her. I mean, she wouldn't check my thyroid levels, you know, based upon that measurement was a 4 point something on the high side of normal. But she wanted to put me on her books to give me a pap smear. It's almost kind of like, you know, that's kind of perverted. Anyway, so she did my vitamin D. Now this is the sketchy part. Oh, sorry, I bumped my own camera. Yeah, she comes up as a 47.8. We're checking my vitamin D levels because I wish they would check my vitamin A levels because that would probably paint a bigger picture. From what I understand of like Hashimoto's and things like that. It came off 47.8. The thresholds are 24.8 to 81.5. So, how did I lower my cholesterol? And I started eating like pasta because I have a macaroni and cheese kind of addiction. Probably more so than any other food. I can do some macaroni and cheese like every day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Love it. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm a freak. Anyway. Yeah. Cholesterol went down. So, what did I start taking? Citrus bergamot. Yes. I took citrus bergamot. What dates are those? Yeah, we gotta keep all that together. Okay. So, I did the citrus bergamot after a friend on Facebook had suggested it. And yes, it did in fact lower it a little bit. There was a point somewhere, it was right after I had seen this new doctor. Now, I don't have a means of being able to check my blood work every single day, you know. But I had gotten this extremely frustrating inability to focus, right? It felt brain foggy, right? I didn't know what was going on. And then all of a sudden one day it woke up and here I am sewing sheets. Yeah, I've got a few more to go. We're going to continue on that. We're not going to show you that. We're just going to get it done. But the subject that had come up at work the other day, I was talking to one of the kids. He's great. He's got a bunch of little nieces and nephews and stuff, so he likes to talk about kids. Like at Christmas time, I was giving him suggestions for like kids' Christmas shows that a lot of people don't know about. And he was like, oh, that looks so cute. And I was like, yeah, you ought to check it out, you know. So I gave him a list, and he started looking them up online and whatnot. But anyway, I was telling him about, I said, yeah, I'm sewing for my daughter. And he's like, oh, that's so cool. And I was like, yeah. And I think I have a picture of it somewhere. I have to go through the box. Good God. I love that picture. It's me and my daughter playing at her daycare, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, she is in one of the outfits I sewed for her. And she is so damn cute. It's blue with little clouds on it. It's fucking, oh my God, I love it. It looks like real clouds. Anyway, I was talking about this daycare, and what had happened was, when I had first initially gone to this daycare provider, she had agreed that she would start me on this particular date in May. After I came off of my paternity leave, my maternity leave thing, right? So there I am, and she calls me like 3 days before, because I was supposed to start on the 11th, and it was like the 8th. She called me. I remember specifically because there's a huge scandal behind all of this. I was like, wow, what happened? She goes, well, I'm going on vacation. And while I was gone, I was going to rely on my assistant to be able to take care of your daughter. But I can't have 2 infants because an infant came in and it was kind of like an emergency situation. And I'll give you the backstory to that. So anyway, it kind of involved me because I had to call my church, my mother. I'm not even involved with the church, right? I called my mom and I was like, help! She was like, what's going on? I was like, I need help. She was, what happened? I was like, and I told her the story. And here's what happened. On May 7th, a woman with I think her baby was like, I think she's a couple of weeks younger than mine. So she's just barely, maybe 3 months old. Maybe 2 months old. Something like that. She had to, it was like an emergency. This woman had found my daycare provider in a pinch and called her. She goes, I'm desperate. I have to get back to work. The baby that I'm bringing to you is not mine. It is my niece's. And my niece has come up missing. And you might not have heard it on the news. You might have. Who knows? But this was like literally within 2 days this woman had to go back to work, right? So my daycare provider said, yes, bring her. We'll figure something out, right? For this lady who had to get back to work. Now, I kind of had the military backing. If something should have happened and I needed to take an extra week, I probably could have done it. But at the same time, I wanted to get back to work because I needed to get back into the routine. I was losing it being home. I wasn't getting any sleep anyway, right? And so, she calls me and she explains the situation, and all well and good. Mom called the church called the Relief Society people said, yeah, we've got 2 moms that can do it like alternating days, and that way you're covered for I said, it's only about a week, right? And the Relief Society within this, church is, they're freaking awesome. These ladies are just, hearts the size of Texas. So anyway, I'm covered for the week. So I start back and I get to meet this baby that has been brought there, that under an emergency, I kind of rerouted my whole situation, given that I had an ability to do that. And because the laws there, it's like you cannot have 2 infants to 1 person. You can only have 1 infant to 1 person providing, and then X number of children different ages. That's the law, right? So she was going to take a vacation, and she had already had it booked, and I think they were taking a cruise or something, her and her husband and her kids. So her assistant was going to be there with my daughter if this other baby had not shown up, right, kind of thing, which would have been fine. And so I got to meet the assistant. I met her. Everything was all good until about 3 days before I had to bring my baby there. It was wow, right? Well, fast forward. This is now May. Now fast forward to September. Yeah. The mother is found. And she is part of a little bit squirreled up in my head about that situation. It just came flooding back to me like, boom, when I was telling the story of the sewing. And probably because I was doing a lot of sewing when my daughter was a baby, right? She'd be sleeping, I'd be sewing, baby clothes and things like that. And doing crafts and whatnot. And so I was telling this kid this story, and then I was like, I wonder where the article is referring to that, because it was kind of big down there in Alabama at that time. And so I went and looked it up, and I didn't realize that there was a sixth person, because once I found out that the baby's mama had been found as part of the 5 who were deceased, I basically went along with my life, right? I didn't realize that there was a 6th person missing that was, connected to this whole very mysterious situation that seemed like it had been like convoluted to, let's hush-hush this and hush-hush that, and, whatever. As I'm reading the article. There's another article, I wasn't able to read the whole thing because I didn't renew my membership, but there's an article in there on medium.com where, if you know anything about medium.com, it's great reads. They're pretty short in most cases. It's like the YouTube for writers. It's good stuff. Anyway, so I ran across that first, and I was like, huh. So I went digging some more, and I found it, and then there's actually a YouTube, it's called The Missing Found, where she talks about this entire case, right? Well, here I am, by kind of like proxy. I know the infant and the aunt, right? I thought it was her sister. For some reason, I thought that the aunt... I thought it was this girl's sister. No, it was this girl's aunt. She had brought the baby to the cousin. That's how they, genealogically, this whole thing. Anyway, the one woman, she had an infant child. Well, the weird thing is I was kind of, I was relieved, in some degree, because they had said, no, she didn't just up and abandon her. Something is very, amiss. She had not planned to go missing. She had just gone on a shopping spree. There was bags full of baby stuff and, whatnot. She had just gone shopping. Probably got asked, hey, girl, let's go out. And so she stopped putting everything away, called the cousin. Hey, can you watch, the youngin' for the night? My friends, I need to get out. And the cousin went ahead and, received the baby, and she went off on her way to, take care, hanging out with the friends, and the cousin went back home. Well, it's the cousin's mother that had found my daycare and had, admitted, or basically registered this baby into this daycare facility. And, God bless it. The woman that was in charge of that daycare, oh God, top notch. I don't know where she is today. Beautiful soul. These people were freaking amazing. Amazing. Anyway. Loved them. Oh, why did I leave Alabama? Why? Anyway. So this whole story has been whirling around my head. I can't get it out of my head. Something is very strange. After discovering that there's a 6th person, this is very strange. I had no word of it 26 years ago. Had no idea that there was a 6th person missing. Nothing was ever mentioned. Even when I would sit there and bullshit with my daycare provider and, one of the other mothers that would come in and help, just to, whatever. So anyway, that was that was like the kind of like the distraction of my week that was kind of keeping me focused. When I was waiting my turn at a job, I'd be trying to Google information or watching, you know, the Missing Found talking about this. So if you're interested in that whole story, the story is called the Alabama Six. And in 1999, May 7th, these 5 people that I knew of, actually 6, disappeared. And the missing persons were filed. And it was in September, I think it was September 11, 1999, that the car was revealed being in the P River after the P River had dropped down. And this baby's mama was in that car. Now, what happened to the 6th person is still a mystery. But anyway, I've got things to do. That story is still haunting my brain. I'm wondering where everybody is now. The daycare provider, she was wonderful. Her kids, this little girl that kind of like was buds with my baby at daycare because they were the same age-ish, a couple weeks apart. And yeah, just, you know, you get nostalgic and you think about, okay, you know, lose track of people through your life, and you're wondering, I wonder how they're doing. I wonder what they're doing now. I could really use someone to talk to, you know, and she was great. And God, I wish I knew where she was. But anyway, y'all have a great, great 4th of July. That's my update of all the crap going on in my life, and I am going to get back to these sheets. I've got 2 sewn together. I need to figure out, I got to do the corners on both and get the elastics on, and those will be done. And then we're on the top of the mountain. The downside is putting together everything else. And hopefully we can get this stuff in the mail before the 9th. Yeah, I have goals. I don't know. Unrealistic? I have no idea. But, y'all, peace out.